Hey, what's up everyone? Get ready to get feeling. We're doing unit feel. How's it going, Booper? Booper?
Oh,
Bopper?
it's
Bapper?
Booper?
Booper. Professor Booper.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I wanted to do some feeling today, so I'm excited to take a look who we got here. We got Echoes in Three Houses, so those are
The unit selection quote meta is what you said, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And Three Houses is a game that always feels good to talk about, and discussion of it is always healthy online.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
It took me like until the second half of your sentence. I didn't realize you were being sarcastic. I thought it was going to be one of those things where it's like, yeah, it feels really good to talk about it, but it doesn't really feel as good to play.
No.
But
well, that's Revelation.
Oh,
we didn't get any of those characters.
Yeah. For me, that's usually like I usually associate that thought with before. I do actually think all these, in the right context, are fun to like all these games are fun to talk about and play, especially these like somewhat like Echoes is somewhat customizable, and Three Houses is like really customizable. So in a way, you could say that if these units feel bad, you should have done a better job building them or something.
Yeah, maybe. But then again, the meta of how you want to be feeling these units is kind of wild. We'll see.
We will see. How about we start with good old May, and I mean, she has some of the most iconic unit selection quotes in the whole game, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm still hyper, let's go. That kind of stuff. That just makes you feel hyper and let's go.
Yeah, it does. It does. When I hear like, I'm still hyper, let's go! I'm like, oh, I gotta play this turn now. I'm just gonna throw everybody out here and get them all killed so I can hear it again.
I mean, okay, maybe not that, but I again, you had me in the first half.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
I don't know. She shoots. What's the line? She has big hurdy lightning.
Yeah, she says that once in the whole game, and everyone remembers it.
Yeah, because it's fun.
And also,
she gets to dunk on Bowie. Dunking on Bowie is always fun.
It is, but Bowie's also fun. So if you like Bowie, maybe you don't like it as much. I have a weird relationship with May, not an actual waifu one, but just I used to be like you use her when you have to because you literally have 2 or 3 other units, and then you just kind of bench her for better people like Saber, Kamui, Leon. I mean, you don't really bench people on SOV because you always have enough deployment slots for everyone, but you know, there's deploying and then there's using units, and I generally don't use May. And generally that was also considered what was like, you know, the best idea if you wanted to make the game as easy as possible. I'm purposely avoiding saying the word optimal because I think even beyond optimal play, back then people were just like, yeah, May's not worth using long term. And then people started actually using May or Bowie, like just giving them all the kills they could and making them really strong. And it turns out that once her range, even if you expel your HP, is really good and she can just murder everything, it can turn out pretty well. And then when she promotes, she stops losing HP because she can use her sword on enemy phase, and that means no more losing HP from using spells. And as long as you make sure that she doesn't die, which I know is a bit of a problem sometimes, but if you make sure she doesn't like get overwhelmed by enemies, she's actually really strong and can provide really quick and satisfying clears. And the one I'm using currently on my Iron Man is, I don't know if she's a Tech Blast or if her attack is always that good. She has like a 60% growth or something, which is stupid. And her speed is really good. And she's really powerful and fun to use. And then every time she's MVP, she's like, ooh, that was amazing or something. And then someone in chat probably reminds you that this is the same person that voiced Rhea. And all around, that is just insanely good unit feel for me. So she really turned around. She used to be here, like honestly, and she got up to here for me personally. Is it different for you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I ever had her in bad. I always found her fun to use. Maybe it's contextual across the whole series, because in Echoes we can talk about, you know, meta or whatever. But even in a game like Echoes, where having 3 to 5 range is not spectacular and is just nice. Well, I mean, like, because a lot of characters have it. You've got all the archers, you've got all the mages, get to that point.
Well, the funny thing with May is actually, like, I was using the mage ring on other mages, like Dorothea, and I kept being surprised that she didn't have 5 range, because I was used to May having 5 range, and Gaiden mages also having 5 range, because the mage rings works differently there. So her actually having 5 range makes me feel even better than if I used it like at the 1 to 2 range mage. But yeah, Killer Bow.
No, yeah, Killer Bow, but across the whole series, having 3 range just always feels like getting away with something to me. I don't know why. Even in the games where it's very easy to get to that point, if I'm shooting someone with lightning from 3 tiles away, I'm like, is this legal? And then some Meyer druid hits you from 3 space, and I'm like, this game's cheating.
Yeah, this game just, I think it's just like, imagine like the game's ranges is like some badly cropped PNG or even JPEG, and Echoes just stretching it out beyond belief to 1 to 5. That's how I feel about range and Echoes. Some enemies just kind of cheat and have that much range, even if it shouldn't really be the case. But you know, thank Kaga for designing it that way initially, and then thank whoever remade this game for keeping it that way, because I like that. It's funny and dumb.
I do too. So it's super fun, and May is your introduction to that, as far as I know. She's your first guaranteed introduction to it, because you can have an archer, and arms are out. But I don't know, something about with it being lightning as well. Because a bow, it's like, okay, it makes sense, you know, because you shoot it. It's like you shoot it from far away, like that's what a bow does. But then lightning,
tomes are whatever you want them to be, baby.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just don't know why Bowie doesn't have it with fireballs. You think you could throw those like kind of a good distance. But
yeah, instead you have to level them up to their big herd lightning as well.
Yeah.
Very unfair.
I don't know. I like May. And on the Rhea thing, everybody mentions it every time, and now that does make the May selection quotes hit a little different. but you know, I don't know. I think she's a lot of fun to use.
Both of them smite non-believers, apparently.
Yeah.
One more thing I want to say about the fairness and unfairness of 3 to 5 range. I think it's amazing that you can think of 5 range on the player's side as like, I'm getting away with something, feels good, but when an enemy does it to you, you're like, oh, that's unfair. That shouldn't do that. That's not cool.
Yeah.
That just shouldn't be. It's like really funny how that works both ways. Even though, you know, in a vacuum, it seems fair for us to both to have it.
Yeah.
Speaking of much range, many kills, haha, we have Leon. Usually, I used to be finding like kind of mediocre, like kind of mixed bad, whatever. It's like, okay, so Archer's really good, but Leon's stats are kind of bad, so it kind of evens out. I don't know how you feel about that, but that was how I used to feel about him, and kind of hinting towards the fact that now it's a little different for me, but it's technically your turn to go first.
Yeah. So a lot of things about, you know, Leon. From a gameplay standpoint, its echoes, stats don't matter. Promotions sort of fix everything, and then Killer Bow, which everybody knows now. I didn't know about the Killer Bow stuff. I think my first time I played the game, I almost never used combat arts because they couldn't double. And then I was like, okay, but what about Brave Killer combat art? Didn't know that one was in the game with Hunter's Volley. Now that I do, Leon's on like another level. But for story and all that, Leon's awesome. I do not blame him at all for being stricken with Valbar. I feel really bad, actually, about that, because I'd probably be in a similar situation, but love his design, love his story. To me, he gets a lot of points for being one of the few, or I guess one of the earliest like, positive gay representations in Fire Emblem, that he has like a fully developed character and it isn't played as a joke. So I do appreciate that a lot, and it gives me definitely a special place for Leon, for me.
Like on the unit feel side, like the gameplay side, I guess I should say, Leon is definitely like, I mean, the fact that his classes and bow are so good just negates any problems with the stats automatically. If I get like another bow knight through like pitchforks or sheer luck, they're usually better than him, and as a result, they end up like eclipsing everything, like the Valbar I'm currently using, or the I don't know, but Tobin is even better than that. Even Python is probably better stat-wise, but you know, it's still Bow Knight with 1 to 5 range. You'll probably find a use for them, and there's probably going to be 1 or 2 maps where you just only want to use them. For example, the Desert Fort, I would just completely obliterate the whole Desert Fort with Leon. I'm never going to do it in any other way again, because that map, like, sometimes it's fun to do things in a different way than you did it last time, but doing the Desert Fort in a different way than that can never be fun for me again. It's just so tedious, slow, grindy, annoying, luck reliant. I'm never risking paddle to get crit by a wolf ever again. I'm just going to use Leon to murder that whole field. From a character standpoint, I am not personally someone, like, I'm not gay, so I don't know what it's like to be represented or not represented in a Fire Emblem game or anything. So I don't have any personal horse in this race. I think it's important that people feel represented by characters. My feeling with Leon is, like, if I try to be, like, empathize with people who do, you know, have a need to be represented in games when they usually are not, it's like, Leon is still, like, a very stereotypical gay character. I feel like, I mean, he has, like, eyeliner on, and he, like, Valbar is basically the only thing he talks about generally. So even though he's more developed than, like, a complete joke, I still feel like they could have done a better job with Leon, but it's not like my place to really talk about that, because again, doesn't really hurt me if he's poorly represented. It hurts. I think it might hurt other people, but I have no idea. So, like, I'm generally not super enthusiastic about Leon. Like, I feel like the ideal gay character would be like, okay, they're basically the same as everyone else, but they like guys, or they're a girl who likes girls, and that's about it. I think of Leon as like, isn't he like a little closer to Heather in that way, where Heather is like super exaggeratedly, like, she's basically female sane, is basically what I usually call her. It's just like, haha, I'm a lesbian, haha, you hear me? I like women. Not men, I like women. He just talks about it all the time. And if you're like, doesn't that feel bad? But I don't know. So I was curious what you thought of that.
Yeah, so, you know, it can feel bad, and I don't want to speak too much on Heather, because I'm not a lesbian.
Oh, that's fair.
But with Leon, I do think, you know, for me, there is something satisfying about, I don't want to say like in the stereotype aspect, but the fact that he does own it, and they don't play it necessarily as like a joke.
That's true. They do actually like take it seriously. I will say that. That's true.
Yeah, they don't make fun of him for wearing eyeliner or for being more flamboyant. The fact that he owns this gay identity and he owns like these sort of gender bending qualities, I think can be quite impactful in a game where everyone's just a weirdo. And so in that way, I do appreciate. There's also just sort of the Fire Emblem, let's be real, there's baby steps sometimes where you have to kind of grade it on a curve a little bit, which does hurt.
Yeah, I always feel like for these kind of things, it's nice to have baby steps in there, but I think if you really want to push them further towards what you want, you have to be a little bit more extreme and like shoot for the moon basically, and maybe you'll get somewhere halfway. I feel like. So if you like, let's say you get the message across to whoever's designing these things that what they've done is sufficient, that Leon is like, okay, this is what we want, this is all we need, then I think they're going to stop progressing, you know what I mean? That's what I feel. But again, I don't know a whole lot about these things. This is just what I think. But anyway, feels good overall. I guess we agree. It does feel good. Yeah. Okay, Celica. I think the first thing I need to mention about Celica is she has so much screen time in the story, so much that I think everyone gets a really good, if you excuse the pun, feel for what Celica is all about and what a character is like, including like dumb stuff like her liking kittens and wanting to take them home when she sees them in the harbor, or her and Alm like wondering, they see a fire or a log somewhere, they wonder like, hey, I wonder if we could set the village on fire with this or something. Those kind of random lines. Or I don't know, there's like with characters like May and Leon, they only talk in like convos, in the supports, base convos, and occasionally in the story, like when you meet them. May is a little bit more present than that, but Celica's around all the time. So I think that makes it very easy to get attached to Celica if you can vibe with her as a character. There's some people who don't, but generally, I don't think Celica is like the person who is going to be like really harsh on people's minds, if that makes sense. Like they don't really, it's kind of hard to actually hate Celica. You could argue she could have been handled better, but I don't think anyone really hates Celica. I personally don't. So from a story perspective, I think she has great unit feel already. As a unit in battle, I think I put her closer to mixed. I know she can be made as good as May potentially, so I'm a little scared to scare her off or like write her off, but I don't really like her stats all that much. I don't really like her spell list too much either. She has some cool things. She has Ragnarok, which is, I mean, it's big numbers, so that's good unit feel. Seraphim is nice when you get it, because you can roast like Necro Dragons with it, and later on Fiends and other stuff that's like annoying. You just want to Oko that stuff. She's okay against Jeddah, and it's very satisfying to kill him for his Draco Shield. She used the Mage Ring to get extra range. She uses swords in close combat, which is nice to not lose HP sometimes. But Celica always feels like a bit more mixed or bad, like gameplay-wise for me. But story-wise, I think she's up here. So I'm kind of tempted to end up in mixed for me. What do you think?
Yeah, she kind of, for gameplay, she sort of peaks in high school for me. It's when you kill the first Necro Dragons, and then I find it's always just sort of a slide from there whenever I've used her. I do love the Necro Dragon thing, though, because I don't know if everybody had this experience, but I definitely had like an ego problem. So I was like, first time I saw those dragons, and everyone was like, stay away, don't go near them. I was like, I'm good at Fire Emblem, bro. They don't scare me.
Bopper, yes.
And then I got just obliterated by them, and then to come back and just roast them with Seteth, super satisfying. But then her maps just don't really do her any favor, because I think Celica's late game maps might be the only time in the history of Fire Emblem where your attack range is consistently larger than your movement range.
That's a great way to put it.
So it's difficult for her to do anything. But then in the story, yeah, I really like her. In the story, I love her design, and then just her story I find really satisfying. The one thing that can hurt her, I think, for some people, is the fact that Jetta's purple. So I think a lot of people ascribe like stupidity to her actions that isn't fair, because Jetta is so obviously like coded as a villain. Like, they give him the evil voice, they give him the evil grimace skin.
Yeah, but that's just a matter of like how genre savvy you interpret like fantasy characters to be, right? Like, just because someone looks like a Smurf doesn't mean they're evil in that universe.
Yeah. It doesn't, but our brains are short-wired to look at Jetta and be like, okay, look at his eyes. Because this goes back to even like Disney movies. Like, Disney villains have like those Jetta-type eyes, whereas heroes have the bigger, rounder eyes.
Yeah, like Ursula and, Jafar, I guess, kind of. I'm trying to think of others. But Ursula came to mind first. Ursula looks the most like Jetta.
Ursula does look like Jetta. So when you have like an octopus man coming up to her being like, oh, I'll do, and he's giving her the spoiler option, our brains as the reader is just like, no, don't take this. This is obviously a trap. But like, when you get into that story, I don't think that's fair when people judge her that way. So I actually really like her story, and it makes sense to me, like the decisions that she makes, and having a character forced into making tough decisions that are actually complicated makes them more interesting for a main character.
Yeah,
which kind of stands out a little bit in Fire Emblem, because there's not a whole lot of lords that have to make complicated decisions.
And then face consequences as well.
Yeah.
I think
so. I love Celica. Yeah.
Celica is like consistently portrayed as naive, and then she does something dumb in the end, and everyone is very surprised about it. I always found that very amusing.
Yeah.
I feel like overall I might have said mixed. Maybe we can put our finger on the skills a bit, maybe slide her in grade anyway, because that's like some things have more weight than others, especially if you put your fingers on the skill. So I think we can put it in grade.
And it's not like these three categories actually mean much anyway.
Shh, don't tell them that. Oh my god.
No. Oh my god. This is subjective Emblem. This isn't my Fire Emblem.
Reptile brains. Everyone get back to your reptile brains immediately. Nothing to see here.
No, spreadsheets only beyond this point.
Yeah, we Excel Emblem now. Only spreadsheets allowed. Okay, do you want to... I think it's your turn to go first. Do you want to talk about Atlas, your experiences with Atlas?
Atlas is highly variable. I know my first time playing Echoes, I had just a bad time using him because I made him a cav, because I was like, I looked at Celica's army and I'm like,
there's no cav here, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, we need one. We need to pitfall our way into having one of every class. Big mistake, because I had no idea what was coming. And so that experience was bad, but then beyond that, the other times I've played Echoes, I've gone Archer, I've gone Myrmidon or Dreadfighter or whatever, and those have been very satisfying. So villagers I find are often pretty... I don't know, is he good as a mage? I imagine as an armor knight he's pretty bad, but I don't know what his spell list is.
So... I know from the top of my head he gets a couple funny spells. He gets Rescue as like a level 5 sage or something dumb like that, so that's a real grind right there. I know he gets Seteth at some point, and you're probably also a big fan of the Seteth animation in this game, so that alone is a really good spell to have. I don't think he has much, if anything, unfortunately. But those two alone are pretty interesting. Yeah.
He also does something that I really like. I think Pala and Katria do it as well, that if you just go in the different direction from where he needs... He's just like, bye.
Nope.
Yeah. Which I appreciate. I like characters that don't really care about you, that they've got their own things going on, that I don't want to say opportunistic, but
their journeys collide with yours. So they'll tag along for when it serves them. But like if you're Atlas and your brothers are, not safe, like you're in danger or something, you want to save them. You don't care about going the other way. You don't care about no Mila Temple.
Yeah. But the one thing that does hurt Atlas for me is that, and this is fairly unique for the Echoes characters, is that I don't remember his selection quotes, and that can't be a good sign.
He says, "I'll mow him down" whenever you select him, which I always interpret as "I'll bow him down" because I used him as an archer in my Let's Play, and I couldn't stop hearing it once I heard it once. And then that Atlas was really good. I think Archer's by far his best class because, I mean, look at Leon and then tell me you don't want another one. Atlas has ridiculous HP and strength, and that's it. That's where he min-maxed all his points into. And then he has nothing else. So the one thing you could do with him is make him a Sage and use Seteth for having big bonkers attack and just murdering everything in one hit. Hopefully, please, because if you don't want it kill, you're probably dying. If anything gets to him, you'll probably get doubled and die. So please kill. The other way to do that, which is much more efficient and much better, is going Archer, and then you have the Brave Combat Art with the killer bow that says, delete this enemy please. And Ginormous Attack with a Brave Art is obviously really good. Anything where you don't have to care about speed is really nice. You could also try to fix his speed by making him a mercenary. Unfortunately, then he is another mercenary in a route where you only have like 4, so you can get 5 Dreadfighters if you want to, but I generally find that you only really want to train 1. I know it sounds like a pitfall, but I think every Dreadfighter beyond your first is bad unit feel, because you'll probably have one that stands out, either through like having high speed, doubling other Dreadfighters, or just being good in general, or having a good selection quote, or being a Pitchfork Bowie or something. Some kind of novelty. And then you have some others, you might have like a Dean or a Kamui or another Pitchfork dude, and they just don't do as much because you generally only need one. Now, Hunter's Folly's bots you can never have too many of. There's always going to be a place for them as long as you have a killer bow for them. But a second Dreadfighter, that doesn't really do anything, I feel like. So, I think Atlas, unless you make him something like that, like an Archer, or like a Sagittarius Mage with an amazing spell animation, I think it's going to be a bad unit feel. And right now what I have is an Atlas that I turned into a Mage, but I didn't train him enough to get Sagittarius. That's bad. That's bad unit feel. The Atlas I had on my Let's Play, where he was Hunter's Volley, delete everything with high attack, that was that great unit feel. So for me, I think Atlas goes in mixed. Where would you put him again?
I think mixed is fair, just because of the high variability of a villager. Like, because I don't want to. This will probably change when we get to 3 houses, but I don't. Optimal picks, probably I don't want to give all the weight to. Because there is like a certain, because like unit feel relies a lot on like a blind playthrough as well. Like your first time going through the game and you don't know what you're doing. Although I do a little bit resent the idea of only train 1 Dreadfighter, because in my first playthrough I distinctly trained 3 of them, and Jesse killed Duma, so you know.
Wait, wow.
Or well, he did the bulk of the damage. I know he did.
And then all the rest. Okay.
Yeah, Alm had to finish him off because, you know, story, but Jesse did, like, all the damage.
That's funny. I mean...
Worth it.
The thing is, though, like, so you have a story about Jesse, but do you have similar stories for the other Dreadfighters or not? Because that's what I'm saying with the unit feel thing. It's like only one of them is going to stand out.
No, that's fair, because Saber stands out because eye patch, Atlas stands out because he's going to mow him down, I guess. I don't know. Okay. Mixed.
Fair. Okay. 3 houses, another game with selection quotes. We have Seteth, Bernie, Dorothea, Linhardt, and Felix. I completely I'm just like slipping away all of a sudden. I completely forgot to like tell people that Patreons pick these guys. So I'm gonna go over who picked what real quick, and we'll continue with 3 houses. So Hugo submitted May, Arcold submitted Leon, Modern Mind submitted Celica, Atlas was submitted by Mani, Precipitatil submitted Seteth. Kirby Master submitted Bernie, and then Blue Caterade submitted Dorothea and Linhardt, and then finally Moo submitted Felix. Those were the submissions. Obviously, I'm going to edit them in again because I'm good like that. But I just wanted to say one more time, thank you for submitting the batch. So, 3 houses, you can build units anyway, which makes the experiences more divergent than any other. Like, we already had Atlas go like completely different depending on what route you take him, and then probably if there were like honor villagers in this whole thing, they would have been all over the place as well. But 3 houses units, they do kind of prefer certain routes just through like their boons and banes, so that way the game kind of nudges you into one direction, which I like because it makes units more distinct. Seteth is funny because he doesn't actually, I don't want to say suffer from that, but he's going to be roughly the same for everyone because he joins so late that you can't really mold him unless you really commit to it. And I think most people would just keep him a Wyvern Rider because he also has a great first impression. I like that Seteth joins you in for like one paralogue in part 1. And when I first saw Seteth in Three Houses, I was like, oh, this guy has to be like a bishop or something. Like he's the assistant to Rhea. He's a church guy. He's gonna be a bishop. He looks like I mean, he kind of looks like an old man in a way. And then he joins you in that paralogue, and he's a freaking wyvern rider. I'm like, what? Excuse me? And he just obliterates everything because his weapons are really strong. He has high ranks, and I will say I've never actually used Seteth in a full playthrough because when you actually do recruit him, you usually already have a full team of students. I think this is something that most church characters kind of fall for, kind of hurts them for unit feel, because when you, like, people pick houses based on their students and the first impression and the house leaders mostly. So people like Edelgard, they pick the Black Eagles. You don't go, well, I'm going to pick Edelgard, but I'm going to get, I don't know, well, not Catherine. You can't really get a whole lot of church characters with Edelgard. Well, let's say you pick Dimitri. You're not going to be like, oh, yes, I get Gilbert now. It's like, no one cares about Gilbert. I think Seteth has a similar problem, but he does have a lot of screen time in the game, so that helps. So people do take a liking to him. People do like Seteth. People do meme about Seteth. So he suffers the least from all church characters from this, I think, besides maybe Flane, maybe Shamir. So that helps a little bit. And then he kicks all sorts of ass. He gets Swift Strikes, which is just a super unfair combat art. Just, you know, I could hit someone once, but I'm just going to hit them twice before they can counterattack. And then he has the Crest of Keyhole, which I think it stops counterattacks, or it boosts damage, one of those two things, but it has a really high chance to proc because it can proc on either hit using Swift Strikes, and that's just completely unfair. So those are all the things that I like about Seteth in theory. The thing is, I've never tried them, so I can't say that he has good unit feel based on my experiences. This is just mostly from watching other playthroughs and on paper. I've never used Seteth, but I think he feels good overall. Have you used Seteth?
I have used Seteth. I used him on my first playthrough of the game, because my first route I did was church route, so when Seteth shows up, I'm like, could use this a little bit. And I think one of the things that helps Seteth a lot, and I'm trying to think of other characters in the series that sort of fit this mold, is that he's a character consistently throughout the game, from beginning to recruitment. So you already have like a feel for him, because I remember I spent the whole time being like, this dude's such an asshole, but I also feel it a lot. Like, I can dig it. Then when he shows up and you get him, like, you already have like you might not have had the commitment of building him as a playable unit, but you already have like a lot of his character from all the story interactions that he has. So it was sort of like the feeling of you see Pent killing everything in the desert in FE7, and then when he shows up and you're like, yo, wait, what? I get this,
yeah.
Let's go.
Are you
he's
sure,
not
game?
as overpowered. Well, he's not as overpowered as Pent, but it is sort of in that same vein of like, you already have an opinion of him going in, and I think how much you vibed with his character beforehand is going to affect that. And to me, I loved Seteth's character a lot, so I had to make room to use him, especially because I find that the Black Eagles students tend to have the roughest time for unit feel for me, so I just didn't have a ton of fun with many of them individually. So I was like, bye, Caspar. You're Seteth now. So I don't know. I like Seteth a lot.
Okay.
And I think he's a bunch of fun to use. And there is a certain satisfaction of having just an out-of-the-box good character in Three Houses instead of having to just climb that mountain of building them.
It is a change for the good, yes. I actually really resonate with what you said about back units feel for Black Eagles in Church Route, because I had the same problem. I've played Church Route once or twice, once on my Ballet solo, which doesn't count. I don't remember my other Church Route playthroughs, if I had any, but the problem I had there was a lot of the characters, they were fun-ish because they interacted with Edelgard and Hubert and they were gone. So they kind of felt like an empty husk. There's something that dynamic, like every house is kind of a dynamic inside of it where people just talking to each other, even though it generally comes down to let's stand in a semicircle and do our gimmick at one time so that we can feel involved. But with Edelgard and Hubert not there, it feels really empty in the church route, and instead it's like Seteth is doing plot exposition, but at least Seteth is adding something to the mix, whereas everyone else is just kind of in there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny that we say that, because we're actually getting into 3 Black Eagle students right now.
Yeah, which is funny. And points to Seteth, by the way, for being the only person who's actively suspicious of Byleth, as everyone should be.
God damn it, seriously.
Well, Bernadetta may be the exception to what I said about the Black Eagles. So they're unit feel in Three Houses is sort of difficult to talk about because units kind of can go all over the place, and there is suggestion that the game pushes you in. First time I played the game, I benched Bernie because I was like, I had other Fire Emblem game syndrome where I was like, Archer, bad, and I hadn't fully grasped just how wild Three Houses systems are. Like, where you can just give anybody anything. And what makes Bernadetta stand out to me is there's this moment in Three Houses when you're playing it and you suddenly realize that all these like weird skills and class combos and things that they stack on top of each other. I think there's two tendencies that the human brain wants to do. We want to build and we want to destroy. And Persecution Complex, that +5 damage when you're, what is it? You're +5 damage as long as you're injured?
Yeah, as long as you're like anywhere below max HP.
Yeah, you compare her to Ignatz or Ashe, who are like the other two kind of out-of-the-box archers. Ignatz +20 hit. Okay, that's cool, but like that's just always useful utility. I don't have to think about that. Ashe lock touch, that's just funny that they would disrespect him that much. But when you realize Persecution Complex, you're like, wait, this stacks with Savage Blow and Vengeance.
Yeah.
And then you can double that up with Hunter's Volley. And then Wrath all stacks with each other. Battalion Wrath, regular Wrath, Vantage stacks on top of that. And you start to like sweat as you realize there's no way this can work. There's no way this should be allowed. And then it works. And then it's a wrap. Then it's hilarious. But I don't like Bernie's character. I know a lot of people resonate with Bernadetta's character, but I do find it to be a little too gimmicky at times, and then I find her post-time skip design strange, that she wears the outfit she does while also being, I don't want to talk to anybody and I'm very shy and closed off. This sort of mismatch between character and design. I don't know, but destroying things, crit stacking Bernadetta, damage stacking Bernadetta, Wrath Vantage, super easy to pull off. She can get pass plus rescue. That's really gimmicky and funny.
Okay.
A lot of fun.
That is a lot of fun. I agree with that. I remember when Three Houses was first being teased, like we were slowly getting more details on the students. One of the first things we got at some point was personal skills. And we saw some of these and we're like, why are they doing this? This is so unfair. They got Raphael's amazing skill of like, sometimes I'll maybe get a little bit of HP. And then we got Linhardt, who's like, if I wait, I restore HP. And we have like Marianne, who's like, if I wait next to a guy with a horse or a wyvern, I get some extra HP. And then you got like all kinds of other like garbage ass personal skills. Most of them are bad. And then Bernie's like, yeah, if I have any damage at all, I just get +5 attack. And everyone just realized like at the same time, like, yeah, that's actually like the best personal skill in the game probably. That's stupid. That's so unbalanced. They didn't even try to balance this, and it's still there. And I don't mind that as long as they compensate in some other way. They clearly didn't, but I just thought it was funny like how much disparity there was between personal skills. And then, like you said, people usually compare Bernie to Ashe and Ignatz, which I think is silly because really, I'm of the opinion you should not rate units within their class, but rather within, like, you know, the whole game, the whole cast. But lizard brains, people do that stuff. That's fine. But to me, Bernie is like almost more of a lance user than a bow user now, because vengeance is like what she's all about for me. Just that player phase nuke that you have. The best feeling I can describe with Bernadetta is when once I realized that vengeance existed. I think Rengor deserves most of the credit for discovering just how good it is. He was like, he killed the Death Knight with 0% growth Bernadetta in chapter 4, which was really stupid at the time. People were like, oh, you gotta use like the Seteth for that, or basically just avoid him. And he just killed him with Bernie. He's like, okay, rip Death Knight, I guess. And he's like, yeah, this makes Bernadetta like 3 tiers better than she used to be, and also more fun, because the early game of Maddening is miserable, especially the first time around where you don't know all the cheese stuff. It's miserable. You just miss all the time. You got like 3-shot enemies with your dinky iron bows, while like slowly edging across the map with your 4 move, and it just takes so long. You only have 3 defined pulses, and if you fuck it up, you have to start all the way from the beginning. Like chapter 2 and especially 5, like the Spiral Tower to Meklan and the Fog chapter, those are miserable. But when you have Bernie and you can just one-shot stuff with Vengeance, which usually, I think if you recruit her out of house, you'll probably start doing it by 5 or 6. If you have her in house, you can do it by chapter 4. That is different. You get to one-shot enemies now. Not just that, you get to do it with a fucking Training Lance Plus or something dumb like that. Because she's so strong. She's more powerful than Dimitri and Edelgard, like, combined at that point. It's so stupid how strong she is. Even without Vengeance, she still has, like, the same strength as Dimitri when you take her personal skill into account. I find that funny. And then also, characters have different quotes depending on how much HP they have. So if they're full HP, they say different things from when they're at low HP. Now Bernie, it will never be at full HP when I play the game. So every time she murders someone in one hit with like a 65 damage Training Lance Vengeance, she'll go, oh, can I go home now? And just laughing my ass off because it's so funny. Because no, I kind of rely on you to kill everything here because it's too funny. I'm sorry, Bernie, but you're sticking with me. For the rest of this game, you're going to murder everything. And I find the dissonance between how much she wants to go home and stay in a room and how badly she destroys everything, which as a human being I enjoy doing. I find that really funny. And this is a huge contrast to how I treated Bernie in the beginning, which is, I mean, my first route was Golden Deer. Didn't get Bernie at all, just didn't do anything with her. Second playthrough, Blue Lions, didn't get Bernie either, didn't use her. Third playthrough, Black Eagles, Maddening. I was going through Blinding, but I benched Bernie because I didn't think she was very good. And instead I used like everyone else except for maybe Bernie, like one other Black Eagle. I just recruited some people out of house or something. And I just streamed Maddening instead with no Bernie. And then from every playthrough onward, I think I've been using Bernadetta because there's no unit as fun to me as Bernadetta. So I really, really, really like using her. She made 3 houses a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
Long story.
She has an arc. She has it's fun to build her. It's fun to then destroy with her. It's not like it's not like someone like Ferdinand who you really have to put the work into and then it's only some benefit. And then with Bernie, it's quick benefit. There's a quick turnaround to using her, and then it only gets worse from there. And then there's like the meta arc too, like just the fan base has just sort of made this discovery over time is really funny as well. These 3 houses are so weird.
Definitely. I'm getting that vibe again where I had like one more thing to say and I forgot. That's great. But yeah, Bernie great. Oh, I was gonna say people think of her like a player phase nuke only, but she can actually do some funny things on enemy phase too. You mentioned this as well. Like you can Vantage by mastering Mercenary, and then you can get Battalion Wrath just by getting Sea Authority, which is something you want to do anyway. So there's a lot of skills that Bernie can just build up to become like an enemy phase nuke. And one of the very few characters in this game actually that can be good on both player phase and enemy phase. Most characters, like Dimitri for example, is strictly enemy phase with Battalion Wrath, Battalion Advantage. Edelgard's more of a player phase character with the Aemir and Raging Storm. And Bernie can do both if you want to, but if you just stick with one, that's fine for her too. She can work either way, but she's really, really, really fun to use. I like her a lot. Good submission. Dorothea, I don't have a lot of experience using Dorothea. I never recruit her out of house, and I don't play the Black Eagles so much where I actually actively use her. I know her uses on paper are pretty good, but I've never been super impressed by her. Like, generally, I think offensive mages in 3 houses feel kind of bad to use because I'm used to the likes of, I don't know, like, not even super amazing ones like Pent, but for example, I think like FE7 Urk, for example, he still doubles and kills a lot of things usually when you use him. Like, he's also fairly capable of surviving an enemy phase or 2 as long as you put him in the force or something. Like, he's not going to be amazingly tanky, he's not Oswin, he's not going to be amazingly offensively good like, I don't know, Harkin or Pent or something, but he gets the job done, he doubles, he does fine. With Dorothea, she doesn't really double attack a whole lot of things, I feel like. Even when I was playing hard mode, she doesn't really kill anything. She has good range with Thoron, but that runs out quickly, and then it feels bad to use Thoron because you know you're low on uses, because it has low uses. But when you're out, it feels even worse, because then you can only attack from 2 range. And her durability is kind of garbo, and then all she really does for me usually is become a dancer, and then use Charm, or like just dance for people, or Rally Charm is what I was going to say, make Gambit hits better, which is a good utility. I just never found a use for it personally, because I haven't used her on Maddening. Or use Meteor, I guess, to chip people and provide linked attacks. That's pretty good. But then 3 houses, developers were like, oh wait, you're using Meteor to give people linked attack bonuses? Well, now we're going to nerf that bonus for any unit that's not supported with Dorothea. And now, as a result, Dorothea is worse. So we just nerfed Dorothea after you bought the game. And I think we should all go to IS and complain about that, because that's sad. But, I don't know, Dorothea is just not a unit I vibe with very much. It's not a unit I used a lot, but even when I've used her, or when I've seen her used, I wasn't super overly impressed. not super cool. The only thing I will say about Dorothea that I think is consistently impressive is, I mean, obviously her voice actress did an amazing job, and then the line where she talks about how we killed Ferdinand von Eyre in part 2 at some point, that I think stuck with a lot of people, including me. So I like that part of her. But for me, it's not even enough to put her in mix. It's like one line in the whole game that really stands out. So I don't have a super positive opinion on Dorothea, the unit feel-wise. What about you?
Yeah, so a couple things. I guess for one, the voice acting is, of course, great, but I don't know. Three Houses voice acting, I kind of stopped paying attention to a while ago because the ports are so long and there's so many that I just sort of like just am smashing the start button. But that's not fair. That's more of a Three Houses criticism than it is like a Dorothea. So I don't know too many of the supports that deeply, but yeah, you know, good job. Shout out to the voice actors for doing a really good job on Dorothea. But I do think the linked attack thing is funny, that one of her best qualities was she's Glade with a worse leadership star. But yeah, like beyond that, mages do have the sort of DS problem for me where like they just feel very underpowered. I'm always underwhelmed by it. And then early game, when it's super useful to have like all the healing or have the offense, when you really want it in Three Houses, it just runs out immediately before you have a chance. So like the point in the game where magic is the most useful is also when it's the most limited. So it just sort of feels bad. I feel like when I've played the early game on Maddening or on hard mode, I always have to hold Dorothea back because I'm like, you know, I need to spread these like 8 fire uses across this map.
Yeah, that's the bad thing. She only has Thunder. She doesn't even have Fire, I think.
Oh, she doesn't have Fire. Okay, she only has Thunder. Okay, never mind. But Big Hurdy Lightning, wow, you got to spread that over one of these big Three Houses maps early on where you're just moving across at 4. I guess shout out to her personal skill for being the only consistent way to heal in Chapter 2 for me when I played.
Yeah, without running out of uses, especially, yeah.
Yeah. And then even the things that make her unique, like the hat, you know, that people really like.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing early on. Holy shit, people could not stop talking about the hat.
People could not stop talking about the hat, but any Tokyo Mirage Session fiends would know the hat ain't even original to this game. They just yeeted that hat straight off of Kyria from Tokyo Mirage Sessions. So she doesn't even have that going for her to make her feel unique. But, I don't know, her hair's pretty nice, so bad unit feel.
I mean, a hat is not an automatic great unit feel, I'm sorry.
No,
guys.
it's not. It's not. In fact,
it ended up that way.
It's sort of remarkable. That,
yeah, Joshua ended up in here despite the hat and all its problems.
Yeah. And also shout out to Urk. Shout out to Urk for getting 2-rounded by Lin mode enemies in my Iron Man. It's like the game's telling me not to use him. What a mixed unit.
Shout out to Urk for having a hat in the gameplay, but not in his portrait.
Yeah.
That put him in mixed at least. Turns out hats all over the place on this unit field thing.
Yes.
Okay, we have the Linhardts. Did you use Linhardt? Yeah, I mean, you played Church. You had to use Linhardt basically.
I used Linhardt. So Linhardt. A couple things about Linhardt that I really like. One, his dialogue at the very beginning of the game when you can walk around and talk to all the students before you pick a house. His line is something like, "I'm Linhardt. Goodbye." And that always makes me laugh. No matter what, when I play Three Houses, I have to go get that line because it's so funny to me. But also, shout out to Linhardt for having a personal skill that is basically don't play Fire Emblem. Like, because what you do when you play Fire Emblem, I'm sure everybody watching this knows, is that you move around and then you do something. And his is like, okay, but what if I don't do anything? And it's not even like Dedue, because with Dedue, it's like, okay, you don't do anything with now, but it's gonna set up a monster enemy phase or something. Or I'm just gonna like wall a bunch of guys. But with Linhardt, it's like, he shouldn't even have damage anyway. He didn't have damage because I never bothered moving him.
I also appreciate that they put it on a unit that can like physic from afar, so there's almost no reason to never do anything with him. Then they put that on him.
Yeah. I don't know, Goodie Basket would be better on him. Like, legitimately. But that's really funny. But physic is pretty good. But also utility doesn't really stand out, you know, and he's not a funny warper because, like, I don't know, everybody's like warp Lysithea, but that's because dark spikes. And everybody loves.
What do you mean? You can't warp dark spikes. You can't do that.
You can't warp Lysithea. You can't warp dark. No, you can't.
You can use Linhardt's
like,
to warp Lysithea and use Dark Spikes. How about that?
Yeah, you could do that. But what I'm saying is, like, you know, people talk about Lysithea a lot and they use warp, but they really mean is it's fun to kill the Death Knight with Dark Spikes, and now I'm going to use her utility to argue why she's good. Linhardt just has the utility, which is nice. It's good, but he also has a bowl cut that kind of stands out. I don't know. Something about his hair is just sort of funny. Like, he doesn't even care. I don't know.
I like to think of his hair.
I'm stretching.
The hair is like, I think it's just an extension of his character of just not giving a fuck about anything. Just like his catnap ability. It's like,
yeah,
I know it's not good, but that implies, like, you saying that implies that I give a fuck, which I don't. So, goodbye, I'm Linhardt. Like, he just doesn't care. Like, people tell him his hair looks bad. He's like, no, I just don't give a fuck. Now I'm gonna take a nap. Goodbye, I'm Linhardt. Yeah. That's just how he is. Like,
he might be
that's how you can interpret like almost anything that he has, even his spell list. It's like, he uses warp because he can't be bothered to do the fighting himself. He just warps someone else in there to do the job for him. And then someone is like, Linhardt, I'm hurt. Please heal me. It's like, no, I can't be bothered. And like, Linhardt, just come over for a second, heal me. He's like, no, I'm gonna stay here and use physic because I don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna stay here. And at some point he's out of physic and he asks for healing and he's like, no, I don't really care. I'm sorry. It's not happening. I don't give a shit. Yeah. That's what I appreciate. I do agree Bolcut looks bad. I just don't think he cares.
No, I don't think he cares. That's why I think it's funny. I think it adds to him.
Yeah. His
you look at Linhardt.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You say you look at Linhardt, you know what he's about. And
yeah.
I do think it's funny that there's like two characters in this whole series that like both don't give a fuck about you and also want to go to sleep. One's Har, one's Linhardt. What a spread.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. Using him offensively feels like Dorothea, but the thing about Linhardt is he gives you the option not to, and I like that. I like having physic very quickly. So one thing he has over Mercedes, higher faith rank. Mariana's that as well, where you just have physic on chapter 2. It's great because you run out of heal slower, and you can heal the NPCs or anyone who's injured. And that feels nice to keep your guys safe. But he's really all about utility. Offensively, he feels just as bad as Dorothea does. But I think overall, I just really appreciate how consistent you can make everything sound about him. I'm not going to say it was all intentional. The things I just said, it just kind of occurred to me that it kind of works like that. But I think overall, the fact that he doesn't give a fuck is worthy of great unit feel.
Yeah, and this was something I forgot to mention with Dorothea, but it'll come up, I guess, with Felix. But I do want to throw out one thing that hurts Dorothea for me as well, but helps Linhardt a little bit, is that, you know, everybody's like, she's a good pick for the dancer, and that kind of, if you're a good pick to be the dancer, that's sort of a problem to me, because that means you're not doing anything. And we're just going to have to slot you into being useful.
Yeah, that means when we're handing out tutoring sessions and XP, you're not a good pick for that, because you're going to be a pick for dancer. And you're the best dancer is your worst unit.
Yeah, because at least with like Dancer Dimitri or something, like where it's just you're obviously just messing around. It's not even like funny dancer. Dancer Felix would be pretty funny, but I guess you can get into Felix.
Yeah, unit Felix, if you will. I think Felix feels fantastic. He has another personal skill that, when revealed initially, was really hyped. It kind of fell off as people learn more about battalions and how good they are. There are situations, I think, where you want Felix to use Lone Wolf and actually just have no battalion and get a 3+5 attack, mostly early game. But at some point, you want to have a battalion on him, and that kind of sucks. But because like at that point, Felix's arc goes slightly downwards and slowly starts climbing up again as he learns like more authority, gets better battalions, get better bonuses, level up his battalion. But there's like this point where you feel like, okay, Felix, it's not early game anymore, we have to give you a battalion and kind of drop off your attack for a little bit. But until then, he does so much damage. He's so disgustingly strong. Like, he double attacks, you can give him like gauntlets and just quadruple people, and every time he hits someone with that fist, he gets that +5 from his personal. And the enemies really feel that. They really had that unit feel implanted on their faces as that happens. I really enjoy that. And then Felix also has the nice I don't give a shit about what you think attitude that I enjoy. But he's not a complete nihilist where he's like, I just don't give a fuck about anything. Like, if you approach Felix like a normal person, like, I don't know, Annette or something, he just acts like a normal person to you. But he just doesn't care for Dimitri or Dedu or Sylvain's antics. So whatever those guys are up to, he's not enjoying it, and he just makes that clear. But he makes it clear this is not because he doesn't want anything to do with anyone. He just doesn't care about those people because of what they're all about. And I enjoy that very specific attitude about him. And I don't know, I just think punching people was funny. I recruited him on like all my playthroughs basically for all kinds of different reasons. Like I used them on first playthrough because I don't know. First playthrough I was just trying to recruit as much as I could because I barely knew how to, so I thought it was an accomplishment every time I did it. And then from there I just used Felix because it just feels really fun to use. Killing stuff is fun. I like the Rengor has a great description for Crest of Fraldarius, which is sometimes doesn't boost damage because it activates so much that it just happens all the time. And especially when you use gauntlets, you'll feel it happen a lot. And I'm a second playthrough, I made him a War Master, and I was really enjoying how he felt. A little bit fragile, but, you know, killing stuff, like, I mean, destroying stuff is just super fun. That's my feeling about Felix. I think he's great.
Yeah. It's a ton of fun. Do you actually know what the proc chance is on Crest of Fraldarius? Because I have no idea. Because it just happens all the time.
I'll look it up real quick. I do remember it at some point. I think it's like 40% or something, something like that.
Okay. That's really silly, considering how much he gets to attack. Yeah, gauntlets are a ton of fun on him. Everything's a ton of fun on him. And it's, again, a case of stacking damage, where it's technically not as ridiculous as Bernadetta's is. But, like, by the time you get to the point where you want battalions on him, you can have ones that basically sub in for Lone Wolf with how much damage they can give him on top of everything, and then he's always getting the +5 from Fraldarius. And you're doing all the stuff that you said. It just is silly. There's no fall off for him. Like, even once his personal skill becomes less useful, there's still just so much. And even in situations where, like, I don't know, even on Maddening, when I ran him through Maddening, and yeah, he can't double there because nobody can. Not really, but I also don't build characters very well. And just giving him, like, Fierce Iron Fist, it's just so goofy to watch him just destroy things. And then when it comes to edgy Myrmidon characters, which is what I associate his archetype with, is the Navarre type, I think he's a lot more interesting than the typical edgy Myrmidon, because he's not, like, he actually has a character. It's not like, well, Navarre, when he fights one of your dudes in Shadow Dragon, and he's like, will you cry tears or blood first? And I'm like, did you spend, were you up all night coming up with that one? Because you sound really proud about it. Ooh, I'm so scared. Oh, Navarre, don't hit me with 0 times 2. But Felix, though, you know, has, like, it isn't just that he's, like, edgy, but it's, like, actual, like, character depth and the relationships with all the other characters. There's people do, like, meme on the Felix Dimitri relationship a lot, because it is distinct, and I think that gives a lot of advantage. He's a character that stands out a lot, both for gameplay being really good and then having just a very distinct personality that comes through without feeling gimmicky.
Definitely. Oh, let's go with that consensus in great then. That's great. Now,
yeah,
3 houses.
Dorothea.
Turns out today was a really good day for unit feel. Yeah, Dorothea kind of got the short end of the stick, and Atlas kind of. But other than that, everyone just got straight into great.
Yeah.
I guess that selection quote meta really paying off right here for our characters.
It really helps. Unless you're Atlas, and then I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I'll mow him down.
I mean, it's a good quote. I don't know how you didn't remember it. I guess you just didn't use him enough.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It just makes me think of cutting grass.
but that is a very common Echoes action, though.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you suppressed it because cutting grass is kind of a chore in Echoes and it feels bad.
Yeah. It's more of a chore in Echoes than it is in real life.
This is why we play video games, so we can do chores in caves.
Because like, at least I get the satisfaction of, in real life, damn, this lawn looks nice. But in Echoes, I'm like, ooh, 1 silver mark. Yay. Yeah. In
real life, it's like when you do it, you don't have to do it for the next, I don't know, somewhere between a couple of weeks and a month maybe. And in Echoes, it's like once I exit this cave, all this grass will be back and I have to do it again.
Yeah.
That's not a good feel. There's
bad. There's definitely someone, and I don't know, maybe they're in the comment section right now, who spent like 3 hours running in and out of caves to grind up money. Mm-hmm. Someone's definitely done it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've done it while sitting in an airport at 2 a.m.
Dude,
but someone's definitely done it.
I'm just gonna tell you, if you're someone who cuts down grass for money, don't do it. Instead, wait for Duma Tower with Celica and then just go in and out and kill the pots. That's a much faster way to get money because you can get silver bags there. And you can do that infinitely without any encounters whatsoever. It's really fast and really nice. It got me a lot of dumb forges, trust me.
I wish I knew that at 2 a.m. at that airport.
I know, right? Well, now you know.
Yeah.
Now you never have to be stuck at an airport at 2 a.m. again.
Yeah, no. I will go back there right now at 2 a.m. to get stuck there just to go get silver bags, just so I can have closure on this whole part of my life.
Okay, that's good. Well, while you're on their way there, I will say goodbye to everyone who watched the series, or this episode, or this video, or any of my videos, really. I just want to say thank you. And thank you, Bopper, for joining me. It was really fun to have you here. Should definitely do it again at some point. I don't know how soon, because we did a whole season of this, basically. I think this is the 4th episode. I do have a really busy upload schedule right now. Like, I got a lot of videos to get out in conjunction with Awakening, so I don't know how often we can do this again, but I definitely want to do it again because there was a lot of fun. And of course, thanks to my patrons for submitting a bunch of interesting characters to talk about. I do not mind the way the list turned out as well. It looks really biased towards great unit feel, and I'm honestly fine with that, because units with great unit feel is always something to talk about. It's an uninteresting units that end up here for the most part, I think. But still, talking about what makes them uninteresting is still interesting. So
yeah, it's
a win-win-win-win-win situation, and I like those. Feels good.
Yeah, talking about having fun is fun.
That's a great way to sum it up.
Positivity.
Positivity. Feels good. All right.
Yeah, and maybe by season 2 I'll know where Forsetti is.
No, the whole point is to not tell you.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
I'll try to figure it out. See ya.